I am Nopongwa Kolo. I'm a Cape Town-based freelance writer. I also work for an NGO that tries to get equal rights and access to healthcare for humans in the LGBT and sex worker communities. And I am the co-creator and host of Third Culture Experiment, a food club. And that's why I'm here. So, must love food, right? It's a premise of the experiment, and it resonates because we bring folk together under the tagline to come meet, eat, and connect. So, in order to speak to you about the journey of Third Culture Experiment, let's reverse a little bit and look at my introduction to food. Shot. So, chapter 1, avocados. It started with a mammoth avocado tree. We had one kwa NU6 in Tanzania, where we grew up. I lived with my older brother, our older sister, and my mom and dad. And they would often play hide and seek in this avocado tree. And I remember being super short and tiny and craning my neck, desperate to catch a glimpse of like a foot or a faded short or polka dot skirt or something, because my legs were too short to climb. Umama no dada chilling in the kitchen watching us as we immersed ourselves in play. And that memory of avocados, I think it established an affinity for avos for me. And I think all of us have similar food stories, right? And yeah, shot a lot. Chapter 2, pineapples. In the Eastern Cape, in Port Alfred, if you're familiar, there's a stretch of road, an N or an M or an R something. I really don't pay attention to those things, but I know how to get there, I assure you. And we would often sort of drive up because we lived in East London, and we had family holidays in December, Christmas, in Port Elizabeth. So we would drive past that stretch, not the like Grahamstown foggy grey murkiness, but like the scenic Port Alfred prettiness. And there was always like stacks and stacks and stacks of pineapples there, and mama that were selling them as you drove around rather along the route. And they'd make this like really pulpy, delicious goodness of a juice. This was absolutely yum deliciousness. And at some point we then moved from East London, we moved to Port Elizabeth, but we still had a bunch of family that was left in East London. So, and imisebenzi yasekhaya happened again in Alice. So often dad would do these trips, drive to East London, mom's packed his suitcase, he comes back and he's got this like sack of pineapples. You've got like, I think there were 10 rand a sack, so like 1 rand a pineapple in the good old day. I know, that was the good living. So he would arrive and you'd hear the beep with the garage door opening, and he'd come through and he's got his suitcase and he's got the pineapples, and everyone is happy and excited to see him. Yes, because he's a great dad, but also mostly because pineapples. Shot. And we would, on Sundays at 8 p.m, Mnet had that 8 o'clock movie, right? So it was a tradition, each human grabs a pineapple, chop that green mohawk off, and start mushing with the fork. So it was just like sweet, yummy popcorn, and sucrose like flesh just devouring that yumminess. And that would be our popcorn for that movie. And your tongue would pay for it in the morning, but it really was worth it, fully and wholly. Chapter 3, oranges. On Fridays, my brother and I would come home from school, take off our school uniform, super excited and thrilled about the pending weekend, and we'd each grab a tray and at least 5 oranges and a knife. So each human gets to quarter their oranges and then chill and watch Mnet open time, 5 p.m. That's how we knew the weekend had started. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So, which, you know, at some point turned into Angel, but who cares? So you're sitting there with your oranges, you've got vampires being staked and like spontaneously combusting. You've got, I think, demons often being beheaded, and you've got oranges. And that was the win. And then that was during the school holiday, rather the school term. During the school holiday, Utata had a butchery, as we did, in PE, and we'd often work there. And I remember that he had really great top quality meat, and in the backyard they had a designated area where you could get your meat bride. So we were like chisanyamas before chisanyamas were a thing, before they trended. And that was where, via diffusion, we learned about the importance of quality and the necessity of community. chapter 4. Inception. So a decade or so later, I'm in Joburg in my first job and decide 3 years later that I'm going to slash wrist, this can't be my life anymore. So decide that I need to move somewhere coastal, hence Cape Town. But then relocating here, I effectively recognized that moving, I mean, it's recognized as a trauma, right? And I didn't want to sort of get here and be lonely, which is lame. So I went through my phone book, got in touch with mates that I'd met here during varsity, haven't spoken to them in 4 years. Everything's gonna be all right because Facebook says you still live here. So call them up, hey, are you keen to meet up for a meal? And that was to break bread, to see if there was still a foundation for us to be able to build a friendship on, yeah? So some of them came through, some of them didn't. Some of them we had a conversation and we enjoyed ourselves, like, oh my gosh, I'll call you back, that was so amazing. And then you don't, and life carries on. And some stayed, some I kept. And I was able to create a base for myself, a community, a tribe, and that really helped with my transition back into this place as an adult. And then we're on? Moving to Joburg, okay. Then a friend of mine, Ulindo Kutlengosi, we move in together. Later she goes to an event in Woodstock. They've got art on the walls, they've got really yummy food. She comes back raving about this creamy mussel soup starter that's like a restaurant caliber deliciousness. And then fast forward to me meeting Uhlumela Matika. Now I think we're at yoga. She invites me and a couple of friends over for dinner. She makes chicken in a way that I've never tasted chicken before. Fast forward, Linda Kuhle is leaving, going on a trip, seeing the world as one does, and we're at a restaurant off Kloof, all sit. I think there were 4 of us, but then friends kept bringing friends, and so the table of 4 grew into a table of like 16. And as we're sitting, she like looks up across the table and she's like, oh my gosh, it's Woodstock girl. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's chicken girl. So I holler at Uhlumela and I'm like, yo, I've got this concept, let's have a conversation. That's her. So this idea, it pulls together in my head, it crystallizes, and she's now studying in the States. And I'm like, yo, let's create this thing, this space, where we use food as a mechanism for connection. Let's do it. And she signs up. So we host our first third culture experiment 2 weeks after that conversation. Go to bed at 4 a.m. after cleaning up. Make a loss of 89 Rand 53 cents each, really traumatic. And then we have like this post-mortem conversation where we're like, oh, we could have done this differently, we could have done that better. And we're speaking like we're gonna do this thing again. So we do, we host a second one 2 weeks later. And now we've hosted 31. Shot. So, cool. So third culture experiment, what it is a monthly food club where we provide a space for young professionals, often based in Cape Town, though we've hosted in Joburg as well, to come out and enjoy a 3-course meal that effectively I prepare. And I also ply you with my mom's ginger beer, which I've like tweaked and added like cinnamon and chili to it, and she gives me side eyes every time she tastes it. And the term third culture experiment comes from being a freelance writer, being commissioned to do a piece. I interview this woman and she refers to herself as a third culture kid. I don't know the term, I look it up. I find out that it means children who are raised in a culture outside of their parents' culture. So as Xhosa, if I'd grown up in Kenya, wow, where the Maori do their amazing stuff. If I'd grown up in Thailand as well, where amaXhosa are not in abundance, then I would have qualified as a third culture kid because I would have been growing up in a culture where, you know, my parentals and their Xhosaness wasn't there. So that's what the term means. And I extrapolated from that we all then qualify as third culture kids because we stay engaging and interacting with humans from different cultures. We'd found a niche in Cape Town where a lot of humans like me all those years ago moved to the city trying to be adult, but struggled to make connections and struggled to make friends. And Cape Town can be tricky and folk don't want to make their circles bigger. I'm like hearing an ascent happening, a young rumble. You're like, oh my gosh, yes. The experiment itself is twofold. There's the food, where we put things into a pot and we're not quite sure how they're going to turn out. And then there's the humans, right, where we get a group of strangers, sit them in a room, ply them with the food, ply them with the ginger beer, and sort of step back and see what's going to go down. Chapter 5 is intention. So when the experiment started, we weren't trying to turn it into a business. That wasn't the intention. But as it grew and evolved, we learned that certain things had to come into play. So we had to get a logo designed. We needed to exist on social media so that folk could find us. We also recognized the importance of feedback. So whether sending an email and having folk reply to you about how they found the experiment, or writing notes at the actual event, that we found really, really important. And we also recognize that not everyone will buy into the concept, and that's really okay. It's completely all right. To each their own, as they say. But those who have bought in are completely sold and are willing to roll up their sleeves and get involved in whichever way that they can. Chapter 6 is preparation. Sure. A lot goes into sourcing the food, into thinking around the food. It can be a conversation that, I'll have with my mom, and she'll be like, oh, remember I used to feed you this? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this used to be so delicious. I'm going to make it for other children. Or I'll read an article that speaks about olives and how you should pair them with white chocolate, because the bitterness of the olive cuts through the creaminess of the white chocolate, and it's yum delicious. And then I do it and it wins. And my brother is a biokineticist, so he's like mindful about the impact of food on the body. My sister watches all of the food channels and also did home ec growing up, so she's also very useful with techniques and things. So this is the food. There's a lot of prep and a lot of planning that goes into the process. Chapter 7, it's the last one, and it's execution, so don't worry. Once the menu is developed, we then send the invites out, and that's a good way also, because we've existed on media, because we've been around for 3 years now, folk do get in touch with us if they want to do collabs or if they want to actually attend the experiment. So these are some of the humans that we've collaborated with: Amarula, Dieudonné Vineyards, Stellenbosch Wines, Kruger and Jack, Alte Gedacht. We've hosted in Joburg twice. We're planning another one before the year is out. We had our second birthday at the Stevenson Gallery here in Woodstock, and that was last year. And we had our third one at Ash Ceramics Studio. So it was a ceramics workshop, really dope. And that was in winter this year as well. Yeah, so it's been 3 years. And these are the things that we walked away with. First is start. It's easy to get caught up in the planning and talking yourself out of doing the thing. So the most valuable lesson came from actually implementing the action, to start somewhere and start something. Ask for help and be willing to accept it. 3 is outsource. You won't handle everything. You'll have a stroke, you'll die, it'll be awkward. So ask for help. Number 4 is soundboard. Trick friends and family into hearing you out and helping with the planning process. 5 is revel in it. Enjoy it. Take a step every once in a while to be like, oh my gosh, I did this and it's still alive. Immerse yourself and soak in it. 6 is be grateful. A little thank you won't hurt. It goes a really long way. So be mindful of the humans that helped you get to where you are. And 7 is have fun with it. So big shout out to our collaborators, to the SA Street Food Festival, the photographers who come through. Lutando, you're amazing. Friends, family, my guy, and the growing folk who want to join our tribe, as well as God and the ancestors. Our next experiment is at the end of this month. It's a Saturday, it's the 30th of September, and we're doing a collab with Hartenberg Wines. So holla if you want to come through. It'd be lovely to have you. Engos.
Yo! You guys are still cool? Yeah. In the shade. Okay, some smiles. Alright, 1, 2, 3, at least 3 out of 10. That's good.